Beloved daughters of destiny, mighty women of valor, hear me this morning. This is not just another message. This is a prophetic summons to the women God has been preparing in the hidden place. You did not stumble upon this word by accident. He led you here because something in the heavens is about to shift in your favor. Between the hours of 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., when the world sleeps and the heavens are open, there is a divine window where angels are dispatched, battles are won, and destinies are rewritten. You see, this is the hour of divine visitation. It's when the womb of the morning births miracles, when spiritual gates open, and when the Spirit of God searches for intercessors. Women who will not merely exist, but legislate in the realm of the Spirit. For the word declares, those who seek me early shall find me. And when a woman finds God in the early hour, she finds herself, her purpose, and her prophetic authority. There's something about a praying woman at dawn. When she opens her mouth in prayer between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., the forces of darkness tremble, cycles are broken, and the voice of the enemy is silenced. Heaven leans in to hear her cry, because that is the hour when destinies are downloaded and burdens are lifted. I'm speaking to women who have been carrying silent battles. Those have smiled in public but wore it in private. This is your hour of divine reversal. The secret prayer you are about to learn today is not ordinary. It's a key, a divine password to unlock supernatural favor and divine acceleration. It carries the sound of breakthrough and the vibration of heaven's frequency. When spoken at the right time, with the right heart, it summons angelic assistance and ushers you into divine alignment. So, woman of God, prepare your heart. Lay aside your distractions, silence every voice of doubt, and ready your spirit to ascend. For this is not just a prayer. It is a covenant moment between you and your Creator. The anointing that breaks yokes is about to be released, and the heavens are about to respond to your voice. Between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., as you lift up the secret prayer, God will meet you at the point of your expectation. You're about to enter the realm where impossibilities become testimonies. The divine turnaround you've been praying for will no longer delay. Get ready, because after this prayer, something is about to happen that will confirm to you that the hand of God has moved. This is your moment. This is your hour. Heaven is open. Let us ascend. Between the hours of 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., the earth rests under a divine stillness, and yet the heavens are in full operation. It is the time when creation holds its breath, when angels are dispatched, and when the Spirit of God walks through the corridors of time, seeking those who will stand in the gap. This sacred window of time is not an accident of the universe. It is a spiritual appointment set by God for those who dare to draw near. The word tells us in Psalm 63:1, early will I seek thee, my soul thirsteth for thee. These hours before dawn are charged with supernatural energy because they represent the threshold between night and morning, between warfare and victory, between silence and song. It is when heaven is closer to earth and the divine realm is most accessible to those who hunger for his presence. In the realm of the Spirit, timing is everything. There are hours when prayer ascends like incense and hours when prayer ascends like thunder. Between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., prayer is amplified by the power of divine timing. This is not superstition, it is revelation. When you rise in these hours, you are synchronizing your spirit with God's heavenly rhythm. You are aligning yourself with the cycles of divine intervention. The scriptures describe this as the watch of the morning, the time when God moves mightily on behalf of those who seek him. David said, at midnight I rise to give thanks to you, and Jesus himself would withdraw before dawn to commune with the Father. This is the moment when spiritual portals open, when revelation flows, and when destinies are recalibrated. When a woman rises in this holy hour, she breaks through the barriers of the natural world. She moves beyond fatigue and flesh and steps into the realm of dominion. Her prayer pierces through the veil of darkness that often blankets her home, her family, and her destiny. The enemy operates in darkness, but when she awakens between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., she meets him at his own gate and disarms him with divine authority. This is the hour when demonic assignments are canceled and heavenly mandates are activated. When her voice breaks the silence, the frequency of her faith reverberates in the spirit realm, scattering confusion and establishing peace. She is not simply speaking words. She is legislating with heaven, invoking divine order into her life, her family, and her nation. God is drawn to sacrifice, and there is no greater offering than the surrender of one's rest to meet him in secret. In those quiet hours when the world is still asleep, heaven bends closer. It is a covenant act of intimacy. A woman who prays between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. declares to the universe that she values the presence of God above the comfort of sleep. And that posture of devotion provokes divine response. The Lord delights in the pursuit of those who seek him earnestly. The prophets, the intercessors, the women of fire throughout history, they knew the value of the early watch. It was during these hours that Hannah wept before the Lord, that Deborah received divine strategy, that Mary pondered the mysteries of destiny. Heaven has always responded to women who wake the dawn with worship. This time carries a spiritual vibration that awakens dormant things. When the woman prays during these hours, she is not only speaking to God, she is speaking to her destiny, to her purpose, to her future. She summons what was lost and calls forth what was delayed. It is in these hours that the prophetic anointing intensifies, that divine dreams and visions are released, that burdens become blueprints. The womb of the morning births ideas, miracles, and movements. Every prayer uttered with faith between these hours is a seed planted in fertile soil. Heaven remembers those seeds, and in due season, they manifest as breakthroughs. The forces of darkness understand this timing, which is why many spiritual attacks intensify at night. But God in his wisdom has given his daughters a counter strategy to rise when darkness is at its peak and to fill that void with light. When she lifts her voice in prayer, she disrupts demonic cycles, intercepts negative decrees, and replaces them with declarations of power. Her prayer is warfare and worship woven together. It is an act of divine rebellion against despair. It is how she overturns what the enemy designed against her family, her finances, her health, and her peace. Heaven acknowledges her authority, and angels are dispatched to execute her words. Between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., the air is thin between heaven and earth. The noise of the day has not yet begun. The distractions have not yet awakened, and the heart is most sensitive to the whisper of God. This is when the Holy Spirit speaks with clarity. This is when the woman hears what she could not discern during the chaos of the day. The prayers spoken in that atmosphere carry prophetic weight. They are not casual conversations. They are divine decrees. As Job 22:28 declares, you shall decree a thing and it shall be established unto you. In these hours, decrees become destiny and faith becomes reality. There is also a sacred exchange that happens in this period. As she pours out her heart, God pours in his strength. As she worships, he downloads wisdom. As she intercedes, he dispatches intervention. Her prayers create spiritual transactions that manifest in the physical world. The favor she walks in during the day is a reflection of what she secured during the early hours. Her peace, her confidence, her breakthroughs. They are all the fruits of those unseen encounters with God in the secret place. When she stands before men, it is because she first bowed before God. This time also signifies prophetic positioning. To pray between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. is to stand on the threshold of a new day, symbolically commending the morning to align with divine purpose. The woman who prays at dawn is literally shaping her day before it begins. She is calling light out of darkness, commending blessings to locate her, and setting the spiritual tone for everything that will unfold. Psalm 5:3 says, "In the morning, Lord, you hear my voice. In the morning, I lay my requests before you and wait expectantly." That expectancy becomes her anchor, and her faith becomes the bridge that connects her to the miraculous. Heaven is drawn to consistency. When a woman makes a habit of rising to pray at this sacred time, she becomes a vessel of divine power. Her spiritual atmosphere changes. Her home becomes a portal of glory. The presence of God saturates her environment, and her life begins to bear supernatural evidence. Where there was confusion, there is now clarity. Where there was delay, there is now acceleration. Where there was oppression, there is now freedom. Every time she prays during these hours, she is building a spiritual altar, and that altar speaks on her behalf, even when she is silent. The divine power of praying between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. cannot be measured by human logic because it transcends the natural order. It is a partnership between heaven and earth. It is when time meets eternity, when the spirit overshadows the flesh, and when destiny awakens. God responds to faith, but he is moved by sacrifice. And this time of prayer embodies both. The woman who understands this mystery becomes unstoppable. She carries a spiritual fragrance that announces her in realms where her name has never been heard. The light of God goes before her, making crooked places straight. She becomes a carrier of revival, a voice of transformation, and an instrument of divine manifestation. When she prays in the stillness of dawn, she is not just changing her circumstances, she is changing the spiritual climate around her. Her prayers echo through generations, altering legacies and birthing movements. Every time she kneels in those hours, heaven records her faithfulness, and the supernatural realm recognizes her authority. This is the divine power and spiritual significance of praying between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. It is the womb of miracles, the gate of transformation, the moment when heaven leans low to kiss the earth through the prayers of a woman who knows her God. The secret prayer is not a formula of words, but a revelation of intimacy, a divine code that opens the heart of heaven to the cry of a woman who knows her covenant. When a woman enters that sacred hour between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. and utters this secret prayer, she is not speaking from her mind, but from her spirit. It is a whisper that shakes the heavens because it carries the authority of divine alignment. The secret prayer is a key hidden from the casual, revealed to the hungry. It unlocks the mysteries of the kingdom. It pierces through the clouds of delay, and it calls forth divine favor to manifest on earth as it is in heaven. It is a password written in the language of faith, activated by purity of heart and depth of surrender. It is not about eloquence, but about alignment. When her heart beats in rhythm with the heartbeat of God, the secret prayer becomes a divine sound that resonates with heaven's frequency. This secret prayer functions as a spiritual key because keys are symbols of access, authority, and control. Jesus said, "I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven." The secret prayer is one of those spiritual keys that allows a woman to bind what needs to be restrained and release what needs to be set free. It opens the vaults of divine resources, it shuts the doors of affliction, and it releases angelic assistance. This kind of prayer shifts the atmosphere not only around her, but within her. It brings her into a posture of divine cooperation where heaven and earth begin to move in sync. When she prays in this way, her words become decrees, and her decrees become manifestations. Heaven recognizes the sound of her voice because it carries the tone of faith, authority, and covenant. This prayer is called secret because it cannot be uttered by everyone. It requires revelation. God hides mysteries not from us, but for us. He conceals them until the appointed time. until we have matured enough to handle their power. When the woman of God receives this secret prayer, it means heaven has deemed her ready. She has been through the refining fire. She has walked through nights of silence. She has learned to trust God beyond understanding. Now she is entrusted with divine technology, the capacity to legislate in prayer and cause the supernatural to intervene in the natural. When she prays this secret prayer, things begin to align effortlessly. Favor locates her. Doors that were shut begin to open. People who once ignored her begin to remember. Her steps are ordered, her discernment sharpens, and her atmosphere becomes charged with divine energy. The secret prayer is not about the length of words, but the weight of intention. It is the prayer that comes from brokenness yet carries authority. It is birthed from the ashes of pain, but releases the fragrance of worship. It is the cry that rises from surrender, not demand. When a woman prays from that place, her words ascend unhindered. Her tears become incense. Her silence becomes sound, and her groaning becomes prophecy. Heaven records those moments and responds with divine speed. The secret prayer aligns her with heaven's agenda and shifts her from reaction to dominion. She no longer prays from desperation, but from revelation. She understands that she's not begging God to move. She is partnering with him to manifest what is already settled in eternity. Divine alignment is the result of this secret communion. Alignment means to come into agreement with divine timing, divine purpose, and divine will. When her prayer aligns with heaven, everything around her must fall into place. The confusion that once plagued her mind dissipates. The obstacles that once hindered her progress are removed. The relationships that no longer serve her destiny are gently severed, and divine connections begin to emerge. She begins to attract what aligns with her assignment and repel what distracts from her purpose. The secret prayer fine-tunes her spirit, bringing her into the same frequency as the throne room. What was once chaotic becomes clear because divine order begins to reign. As she prays this secret prayer, she steps into divine rhythm. Every move becomes strategic. Every word becomes prophetic. Every thought becomes an instrument of manifestation. The secret prayer calibrates her life to heaven's clock. She no longer chases blessings. Blessings chase her because she is walking in sync with divine flow. This alignment is not limited to spiritual matters. It invades her finances, her family, her emotions, her health. Everything begins to harmonize with the will of God. The secret prayer acts as a divine magnet, drawing the unseen into the seen. It is the connection point between revelation and realization, between promise and possession. When divine alignment occurs, supernatural favor becomes inevitable. Favor is not random. It is the visible evidence of divine alignment. It is heaven's endorsement upon a life that pleases God. The woman who prays the secret prayer attracts favor like a fragrance. People begin to help her without understanding why. Opportunities find her without striving. She enters rooms she did not apply to enter. Her name is mentioned in places she has never been. This is not coincidence, it is consequence. Favor is the shadow of alignment. When she walks with God in rhythm, his favor follows her as evidence of their partnership. The secret prayer carries creative power. It shapes reality, restructures outcomes, and restores what was stolen. Every time she speaks it, she is releasing divine codes into the atmosphere. Angels respond because they recognize the sound of faith. The elements align because creation responds to the voice of authority. The universe itself bends toward the one who is aligned with divine will. When she prays, time redeems itself. Lost opportunities are restored, delayed promises are accelerated, and what was meant for harm turns into testimony. The power of the secret prayer lies not in repetition, but in revelation. It is effective because it is birthed from intimacy. This prayer also brings spiritual clarity. When a woman lives in divine alignment, confusion loses its power. She hears God's instructions clearly and moves without hesitation. Her discernment increases, her sensitivity sharpens, and she begins to see through spiritual layers. The decisions that once intimidated her become easy because she knows heaven's direction. The more she prays the secret prayer, the more she aligns with divine wisdom. She starts to sense what heaven is saying even before words are spoken. She operates prophetically, intuitively guided by the Spirit. The secret prayer also heals emotional fractures. It realigns her inner world with divine peace. The more she prays, the more her heart synchronizes with the love of God. Old wounds lose their sting. Fear loses its grip, and doubt is replaced with confidence. She learns to rest in divine timing. The alignment created by this prayer doesn't only open external doors, it opens internal peace. Her spirit becomes anchored. She is no longer tossed by circumstances because she understands alignment guarantees outcome. Through the secret prayer, she becomes a vessel of divine manifestation. Wherever she goes, heaven follows. Her words carry authority, her presence shifts atmospheres, and her life becomes evidence of the supernatural. People are drawn to her light because divine alignment makes her radiant. This is what happens when heaven and earth meet in the heart of a praying woman. She becomes a portal through which God expresses his will, every part of her life. Her speech, her walk, her actions begins to prophesy alignment. The secret prayer is both the language and the lifestyle of divine connection. It is what bridges the distance between the seen and the unseen, between the woman and her maker. When she speaks it at dawn, she is not only praying for herself, she is setting in motion the orchestration of divine purpose for generations. The ripple effect of her prayer moves through time and space, touching lives she may never meet. It is a legacy prayer, a timeless key, and as she continues in it, her life becomes a living prophecy of what it means to walk in supernatural favor and divine alignment. There is a mystery that unfolds in the womb of the morning, a sacred dimension where heaven partners with earth, and prayer becomes the instrument of transformation. When a woman rises to pray between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., she is not merely engaging in routine devotion, she is stepping into her spiritual authority. The early morning carries divine potency because it is the hour when creation awakens, when light conquers darkness, and when divine decrees are established for the day. In those still moments before the noise of life begins, the voice of a praying woman becomes a trumpet in the realm of the spirit. Her prayer doesn't echo in emptiness. It penetrates dimensions, releases angelic movement, and disrupts the plans of the enemy. When she lifts her voice in faith, the heavens respond because she is operating under spiritual law. She is not begging for power, she is exercising it. The authority released in the womb of the morning is different from the authority of the day because it is birthed from intimacy, obedience, and consecration. It is in that secret time that she establishes the spiritual atmosphere for everything that follows. The woman who prays early doesn't wait for the day to dictate her mood or her outcome. She commands her morning, and by doing so, she commands her destiny. The scriptures declare in Job 38:12, "Have you commanded the morning since your days began and caused the dawn to know its place?" This is what she does when she prays at dawn. She speaks order into chaos, peace into turmoil, and abundance into scarcity. Her prayer becomes a spiritual command that aligns the day with divine purpose. As she prays, the transformation begins not just around her, but within her. The womb of the morning becomes the birthing ground of a new version of herself. Her fears dissolve as her faith intensifies. Her confusion gives way to clarity. The weight of yesterday's battles lifts as divine strength infuses her spirit. Every word she utters becomes a seed, and every tear becomes rain for that seed to grow. In that sacred exchange, heaven deposits something in her that cannot be taken away. She rises from that place not just refreshed, but recalibrated. She walks differently because she has met with God in the secret place. The woman who prays in the womb of the morning carries a different fragrance, one that intimidates darkness and attracts favor. When she prays, she moves from petition to declaration. She begins to understand that prayer is not merely asking, but enforcing. She enforces the promises of God over her life. She declares healing where sickness has tried to linger. She decrees provision where lack has threatened to stay. She breaks generational patterns, not by might, nor by power, but by the spirit that is active within her. Her words become spiritual legislation, shaping outcomes in the visible realm. The enemy cannot contend with a woman who knows her authority. When she rises before dawn and opens her mouth, every demonic force assigned against her destiny loses its power. The womb of the morning becomes her courtroom, her battleground, and her birthing room, all at once. There is also a prophetic symbolism attached to the womb of the morning. A womb is a place of conception, nurturing, and delivery. The morning, therefore, represents new beginnings. When she prays at that time, she is conceiving divine ideas, nurturing spiritual strength, and birthing answers that will manifest as miracles. Every morning becomes an opportunity to give birth to something new. Peace, direction, wisdom, breakthrough. In this sacred time, she becomes both intercessor and midwife, carrying heaven's agenda and bringing it forth through prayer. This is why the woman who understands the power of the morning cannot be ordinary. She becomes the vessel through which God births his will on earth. Transformation takes place in layers. The first transformation happens in her mind. As she prays in the womb of the morning, her thoughts are purified, her focus sharpened, her emotions stabilized. The light of revelation begins to shine on areas that were previously clouded by doubt or fear. She begins to think with divine intelligence. Her mind aligns with heaven's logic, and that alignment changes everything. The second transformation happens in her speech. Her words begin to carry life. She no longer speaks casually or carelessly because she understands the power of her tongue. The third transformation happens in her spirit. Her discernment deepens, her worship intensifies, and her connection to the Holy Spirit strengthens. She begins to sense divine movements before they occur. She becomes sensitive to the leading of God, walking in a flow of grace that others notice but cannot explain. When a woman prays consistently in the womb of the morning, she becomes a spiritual architect. She begins to build her future one prayer at a time. She constructs her peace, her joy, her prosperity, and her influence through her intercession. The foundation she lays in those hours sustains her when storms come. Others may wonder how she endures adversity with calmness. It is because she has already handled those battles in prayer before the day began. She has already spoken victory over situations that have not yet manifested. Her secret is not in her strength, but in her timing. She knows that the womb of the morning is her altar of power. The transformation that takes place also extends to her surroundings when she prays. The atmosphere in her home changes. The spirit of heaviness lifts. The presence of peace increases, and the environment becomes a dwelling place for divine presence. Her children sleep under the covering of her intercession. Her household prospers because her prayer creates a shield around them. The womb of the morning becomes her family's spiritual fortress. The prayers she prays there echo throughout the day, protecting, guiding, and blessing everything connected to her name. As she continues, her authority grows stronger. Authority in the Spirit is not given once. It is cultivated through consistency. Every morning she rises, every word she speaks in faith, every decree she releases adds another layer to her spiritual stature. Soon she no longer prays hoping something will happen. She prays knowing it must happen. Her confidence is not arrogance, it is alignment. She is aware that heaven responds to faith And faith is not a feeling, it is a knowing. When she prays, she knows that she has heaven's backing. She knows that her voice carries weight in the spirit realm. She knows that the God who hears her at dawn will manifest for her by day. The authority released through morning prayer also impacts her influence in the natural world. She begins to walk with divine favor in her workplace, in her community, in her relationships. People sense the strength of her spirit even when she is silent. She carries a presence that commands respect without demanding it. That is the mark of divine authority. It is invisible yet undeniable. She becomes a leader not by position, but by presence. Her life becomes a testimony of what happens when prayer becomes a lifestyle. There is also a restoration that occurs when she prays in the womb of the morning. Things that were lost begin to return, but not in their old form. They come back multiplied. The strength that was drained is replenished. The hope that was fading is reignited. The opportunities that seem missed are redirected. She begins to see God's redemptive hand in every area. What others call coincidence, she knows is providence. Every dawn becomes a reminder that God still restores, still revives, still renews. As she prays, her spiritual authority merges with divine compassion. She begins to intercede not only for herself, but for others. Her heart expands to carry burdens beyond her own life. She becomes a vessel of mercy, a voice for those who cannot pray for themselves. Her prayer life evolves from personal to generational. Her intercession begins to shape families, communities, and even nations. The womb of the morning becomes the platform from which she releases the purposes of God into the earth. The transformation is complete when she realizes that prayer has not only changed her situation, but transformed her identity. She no longer sees herself as powerless or small. She recognizes that she is God's partner in purpose. She is his mouthpiece, his instrument, his warrior. The same woman who once whispered her pain now decrees her promise. The same woman who once cried in despair now commands her destiny. Her strength is no longer borrowed, it is built. Her authority is no longer assumed, it is activated. The womb of the morning has made her into who she was always meant to be, a woman of prayer, power, and prophetic authority. When a woman rises between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. and lifts her voice in prayer, she enters into a covenant moment with heaven. What happens in those sacred hours cannot always be explained, but it can be experienced. The manifestation that follows early morning intercession is the visible proof that God has heard, responded, and acted on behalf of his daughter. Every prayer sown in the secret place becomes a harvest in the open. The realm of the unseen begins to yield to the realm of the seen. What was delayed begins to move. What was impossible begins to shift. The unseen hand of God starts orchestrating events in her favor. The spiritual becomes tangible and the invisible becomes undeniable. These are the hours when divine reversals are birthed, when the story changes, and when the evidence of God's power begins to show up in her daily life. As she prays in faith and consistency, the heavens begin to respond with acceleration. What would have taken years happens in months. What she thought would never come to pass suddenly manifests before her eyes. This is the law of divine manifestation. Every prayer carries a seed, and every seed carries a harvest. When that seed is watered with faith, persistence, and purity of heart, it produces undeniable results. The prayers prayed between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. are not idle words. They are spiritual transactions. Each word becomes a command that mobilizes angels and shifts circumstances. Heaven operates by decree, and when her words align with the will of God, manifestation is inevitable. The The woman who prays in the early hours begins to experience divine favor that cannot be explained by natural logic. Opportunities begin to locate her. People she never met begin to speak her name in rooms she has never entered. This is not luck, it is divine orchestration. The favor that follows early morning prayer is supernatural in nature because it flows from the presence of God. The same presence she invoked in the stillness of the dawn now walks with her throughout the day. Her steps are guided, her decisions are directed, and her path is protected. The manifestation is not limited to external blessings. It includes peace, confidence, and divine assurance. She walks through storms with calmness because she has already spoken with the one who commands the wind. When divine manifestation begins, everything around her starts to testify. Closed doors begin to open. Delayed promises begin to move. Where there was rejection, there is now recognition. Where there was limitation, there is now expansion. The atmosphere around her changes because heaven has endorsed her voice. Divine reversals happen not by coincidence, but by covenant. Every prayer uttered in faith triggers a heavenly response. God honors those who honor his timing. When she meets him between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., she is showing heaven that she prioritizes divine intimacy. That level of devotion draws divine response. The manifestations that follow are not random. They are rewards for obedience, persistence, and faith. So, her divine reversals are among the most powerful outcomes of early morning intercession. These are moments when God turns pain into purpose, delay into destiny, and struggle into strength. Situations that once seemed final are overturned. Reports that seem negative are rewritten. The hand of God reaches into her circumstances and flips them in her favor. This is the mystery of spiritual exchange. Her tears become testimonies, her warfare becomes worship, and her prayer becomes proof. The very things that were sent to break her become the stepping stones that elevate her. Every morning she rises in prayer. She is partnering with heaven to rewrite the script of her life. There is also a dimension of supernatural provision that accompanies manifestation. The woman who prays in the early hours begins to experience abundance in unexpected ways. Resources appear when needed. Helpers show up at the right time. She begins to see God as Jehovah Jireh, the one who provides not according to her need, but according to his riches in glory. The same prayer that was birthed in secret releases provision that sustains her publicly. This is why many women who walk in the discipline of early morning prayer carry a certain grace of sufficiency. They rarely lack because heaven constantly replenishes them. The divine reversals they experience include the reversal of scarcity into abundance, anxiety into assurance, and worry into worship. The manifestation also takes form in healing, physical, emotional, and spiritual. During early morning intercession, her spirit aligns with divine energy and healing flows. Emotional wounds that lingered for years begin to close. Her heart becomes whole. The weight of unforgiveness lifts. The residue of disappointment dissolves. She wakes up lighter because the Holy Spirit performs inner surgery in those hours. In the silence of dawn, she is being restored. Divine reversals occur within her as much as around her. The woman who once felt broken begins to radiate peace. Her countenance shifts. Her aura changes. This is the evidence of internal manifestation, the kind that cannot be fake, the kind that only God can produce. The breakthroughs that follow are not momentary, they are generational. Her intercession sets in motion blessings that flow down to her children and her children's children. The same altar she builds at dawn becomes a covering for her bloodline. The battles she wins in the early hours, her descendants will never have to fight. This is the power of generational manifestation. The early morning prayer creates an inheritance of favor, protection, and prosperity. Her family walks in blessings she birthed in prayer. Her home becomes an atmosphere of divine presence. Her legacy is established not through wealth alone, but through spiritual authority. Manifestation also transforms her reputation. Where people once doubted her, they begin to see the fruit of her faith. Those who mocked her now marvel at her progress. The same woman who was once overlooked becomes a vessel of influence. Her story becomes a testimony that inspires others to pray. The manifestation of God's hand on her life becomes a public sermon without words. Her transformation draws others toward faith. People begin to recognize that her success is not natural, but supernatural. She becomes a living example of what happens when prayer becomes lifestyle and obedience becomes habit. The manifestation of divine reversals also changes the pace of her life. Where she once felt stuck, now she moves swiftly. Divine acceleration takes hold of her destiny. Delayed assignments are completed in record time. What took others decades to achieve unfolds for her in months because grace has gone ahead. This acceleration is a signature of divine involvement. When God moves, he redeems time. The woman who prays between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. walks in redeemed time. Every wasted season becomes productive. Every barren place becomes fruitful. And every lost opportunity becomes a new door. The manifestation is not always loud. It can also be silent and steady. Sometimes God answers not by changing circumstances, but by changing her. Her resilience becomes stronger, her wisdom deepens, her discernment sharpens. She begins to carry herself differently, speak differently, and think differently. That transformation itself is a manifestation of divine power. She becomes a reflection of the prayer she prayed. Her life is the manifestation of the intimacy she cultivated. People can sense the shift before she speaks. That is the power of the womb of the morning. Its effects cannot be hidden. Every divine reversal is a reminder that God is faithful to those who seek him early. He honors the sacrifice of the woman who chose prayer over comfort, purpose over sleep, obedience over convenience. The manifestation is heaven's way of saying, I heard you. Every healed heart, every open door, every restored relationship, every unexpected blessing is evidence that her voice reached the throne. The woman who once prayed in tears now testifies in triumph. The same voice that whispered petitions at dawn now declares victory in the daylight. Her life becomes a continuum of answered prayers. The manifestation of early morning intercession culminates in divine authority. Once she begins to see the evidence of her prayers, her confidence in God deepens. She prays bolder prayers, dreams bigger dreams, and walks with greater boldness. The same prayer that once birthed breakthroughs now births nations, ministries, and movements. Her influence grows because heaven trusts her stewardship. She becomes an extension of God's will in the earth. Divine reversals continue to follow her because she has become a vessel of them. She no longer just prays for miracles. She lives as one. Every step she takes is a testimony that between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., heaven and earth meet. And when they meet, something always happens.